issue that I've long been fascinated by, but that's becoming ever more important. And it's the issue that has to deal with the undertreatment of pain, and especially chronic pain, and especially in America. Now, my guest today is Kate Nicholson. Kate is a brilliant lawyer, graduated Harvard Law School many years ago, worked in the Justice Department Civil Rights Division for a couple decades. But the reason I'm having her on now is because she recently started an organization called the National Pain Advocacy Center, specifically devoted to advancing the health and human rights of people in pain. And I'm delighted to have you on, and let's get started. Your work dealing with people with disabilities influenced some of your thinking on this, but perhaps even more so was your own personal experience with really terrible pain for a really long period of time. So just tell me a little more about what that was like and what you learned through the process.
When my pain began, I was already working as a civil rights attorney in the U.S. Department of Justice, doing primarily health-related civil rights law. This was Sunday afternoon in August of 1994. I sat down to get to work like I always did, and after about 30 minutes, my back started to burn really badly. It felt a little like acid was eating my spine. Pretty quickly, the pain intensified, and a lot of the muscles in my body seized up on me, and I ended up in a faceplant on the floor of my office. I had had a surgery, and a doctor had severed part of the nerve plexus leading into my spinal cord, and the consequences only appeared when the nerves began to regenerate. So like many chronic pain patients, I entered a real slog through the healthcare system for about 3 years. There was a lot of inflammation in my spine, and so they thought maybe it was this rare arthritic disorder. I had abnormal nerve conduction studies, which isn't so surprising since I had difficulty walking, but they thought maybe I had MS. So it took a long time to get to the bottom of what was going on.
But meanwhile, you're working throughout this period mostly?
I was. I took a few leaves of absence because I was also being treated throughout this time. And I tried, about 37 different kinds of treatment. And some of them were integrative things like biofeedback and self-hypnosis. And I tried a lot of different kinds of medication, though not opioids initially. Physical therapy, massage, just a host of different things. I did have a surgery where they tried to go in and separate the scarring, but it was not successful.
And so when did you start relying on opioids to manage?
It was that day. It was that day that the doctors basically said there will be no cure. Things are not going to get better. They're probably going to get worse. We've tried everything. We've tried nerve blocks. We've tried every medication, and it's not working. And so now we think you really need to try prescription opioids. And I had avoided them up to that point because I was afraid of them. I had read things and was worried about addiction. I was afraid that I would become, sort of fuzzy and unable to think because my only experience with taking opioids in the past had been post-surgically. But it turned out that none of that was really the case, that once I did start them, I really improved. I wasn't foggy. I was in less pain and able to work better and to think better. And so they were really enormously helpful to me. First of all, there was a liberalization of prescribing sort of starting in the 80s and the early 90s. There was a recognition that pain was undertreated, and that is true. That remains true. Pain is the number one cause of disability, both globally and the U.S. Daily pain affects some 50 million Americans, and profoundly impactful pain like mine, some 20 million. So it is still a very serious problem, but that genuine concern was in some ways sort of hijacked by pharmaceutical malfeasance and the promotion of the idea that if you had pain, you couldn't become addicted to these medications, the understatement of the risks. And really the risks are
doctor said, well, and he said, well, there is an intervention. It's called chemopapain. We inject something into your spine, and it can work well, but there's a 1% chance of paralysis. So I turned down that treatment and miraculously got better. And then when I was in my young 30s, the pain just became overwhelming. And I got MRI or CAT scan, and they diagnosed, herniated discs. And I was on painkillers and this and that, and some massage would work a little bit for an hour or two, but not really. And a surgeon was going to operate on me. And, under the advice of a friend who was a physician, he said, don't get it. He suggested I read a book called Healing Back Pain by John Sarno. And he was, a serious physician at the Rusk Institute at NYU Medical Center. And his view, in fact, was that the vast majority of people who got diagnosed with herniated discs and were suffering lower back pain, that in fact their pain had nothing to do with the herniated disc. Right? And he had a whole theory basically that said that when you look at MRIs and CAT scans, you see huge numbers of people with herniated discs and no pain. And conversely, you have huge numbers of people with pain but no herniated discs. So the notion that there was a causal relationship between the two didn't seem to work very well. And his theory was that in fact what was going on was that one was suffering from an underlying emotional pain, anger, frustrations, whatever, and that the brain played a trick whereby the emotional pain got converted into a physical pain.
Demons, be gone!
Be gone, demons.
Be gone!
Leave this studio!